honored to present ALWAAZ HASSAM once again this week. We are so blessed to have him to do these sessions for us, to give us a deeper understanding of our faith, and he has sacrificed so much time and effort in doing this work. He's brought light to our lives at a time when we're all facing a lot of difficulties because of COVID, and where we can't get to Jamaat Khana, and these sessions help bring some enlightenment and some sunshine into our lives. So I thank Dr. ALWAAZ for that. Before we start, ALWAAZ has asked me to sing a couple of verses of Ginan, so I'm going to do that. These are Venti verses that everyone knows, so even though you're muted, it would be nice if you sang with me. So, Bismillah. Echi karu se baat tamari ko kayama sami to mune sarve buddha abiya sha Toi bachana mara mukha mahiti kajo sha jo sahiba tuja bhavi Echi aasha karine yali tere darau di kara chorine mamangu ya chodidar tosi mahavara datar shah hum tere charani lagu. Thank you, Dr. HASSAM. I will ask you now, request you to please take over and start your session.
Thank you. Thank you, Yali Mother. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for those beautiful Ginan verses that always adds light to the presentation. And I hope that when these verses are recited, that all the listeners are trying to make meaning out of it if you don't know the meaning of it already. And as you know, this is the source quest for light, and this is part 2. Just to refresh people who may not have been there last week, very quickly, last week I covered a very broad area, first of all by beginning to explain the notion and the title of my talk, The Soul's Quest for Light. And you know the word quest means search. And that is an important consideration because any matters related to our spiritual practice is always under the guidance. This search is conducted under the guidance of the Holy Imam. That is a fundamental and foundational aspect of our spiritual practice. And we should never, ever, ever forget that, because we have a very specific path, and our path in matters of spirituality, in matters of practice of our faith, is always has been, it is also now, always under the direction, under the guidance, and under the blessings of the Imam of the time. When I say to you that this search is conducted under the guidance of the Holy Imam, another way of saying it is guided under the blessings and the blessed light of the Holy Imam. And that is so unique, so absolutely amazing in our tariqah. You know, while we are speaking about our tariqah, I always like to add a couple of words in the beginning about ginans. And I say that I do that purposefully and purposely. For one thing, as you already know, our beloved Imam has time and again in many places emphasized that we must upkeep this wonderful tradition. And you know how Hazrat Imam, when he mentions the word wonderful, this is our beloved Imam mentioning the word wonderful. And we must really, really at some point, really reflect and says, when our beloved Imam says wonderful tradition, then surely it is a tradition full of wonder. And it is truly so. And I hope sometime in the future, as I've said in the past, we will be able to share some perspective on ginans. The other thing I should mention is that because we follow an esoteric path in Islam, and our practice is esoteric, it is batin, it means that the search we conduct is also esoteric, it is batin. And it is in the holy ginans, in the holy farmans of the Imam, and for our brothers and sisters who are in other parts of the world, when they explore their tradition of qasidas and mantabats and masnadis, we find that we are able to move into a path of knowledge that brings light and intellectual illumination. It also brings love. It also brings devotion. It also brings enlightenment into that aspect of our being that when we activate it, like for example, the recitations of beautiful qasidas, the recitations of ginans, and other devotional literature, we are truly blessed. And you know, I have to make this comment in case you may be wondering aspects about our tariqah. Did you know our tariqah has not always been evident in the way that it is today. And today we are totally fortunate that our beloved Imam has made the path open for us. But may I tell you something spiritually? It was not always the case that anybody could just come into the tariqah. This tariqah, which is founded on the hakikat of Imam, was always a tariqah that was kept for those who spiritually and intellectually were qualified to come in and be part of the tariqah. This wasn't like an open park. Rather, it was an aspect of spiritual qualification. And only the Imam could determine what that qualification would be. And you know, you can go back in history during the time of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during the time of Hazrat Maulana Murtaza Ali alayhi salam, our beloved first Imam. And you can see this aspect of the batin, the inner meaning, the esoteric, was always available to those who spiritually qualified for it. But it wasn't that people were not welcome. They were. is they had to reach a state of understanding. And this was not like an access for all. This wasn't like a free for all. Not at all. Even though during the period of revelation, the path was made evident, but not everyone could tread on it. So I say to you, every single day, without exception, we must do our gratitude to our beloved Imam for allowing us to be part of this practice, which is the practice that allows us to be the spiritual children of Maulana Hassam Imam. This is the spiritual privilege. This is a spiritual boon. It's a spiritual gift. This is to be a spiritual child of Maula Bapa. It is the highest of spiritual gift for the soul, and we must be grateful, and we must recognize in our prayers, we must recognize in the act of gratitude that we are spiritual children of Hazrat Imam, and Maula Bapa has accepted us to be his spiritual children, by means of which we say he is our spiritual father and mother. And I know perhaps it may sound something that we take for granted, but it takes many millions of years of spiritual evolution to arrive at a stage whereby we are blessed and graced by Hazrat Imam to be born as his spiritual children. So I say to everyone that the act of shukrana to Hazrat Imam, the act of gratitude, when we say our prayers, when we express our well-being, that it is due to this immense blessing that Maula bestows upon us as his spiritual children. And we must ever so be grateful because of having that privilege. We have the privilege from the Imam to walk into a path that we, in our tariqah, we call the path of Nur. The path of Nur. And that is not something that we can, again, just take for granted. Now, I will come back to say something more about it, but let me just continue to just summarize very quickly. So last week, I had raised the question in the beginning of my talk, and again for people who were not there and to refresh you, that why has the Nur come on earth? And I replied by giving you the reference in the Holy Farman and the Holy Quran that our beloved Imam says to us that he has come here for our spiritual upliftment and for the salvation of our soul. And it is the Imam who knows all about the path that leads to salvation. And I quoted to you Rumi, and I continue to quote what Jalaluddin Rumi has said. And what did he say? He said, if you travel without a guide, it will take you 200 years for a journey that should take you 2 days. And that's where the blessing is, and I hope you understand what I mean. The other question I raised in the first part is, why are we here on this earth? The universe is so big. The spiritual world is immense. There is no way we can even calculate or know. When you see what the Quran, for example, says, there are 7 heaven and 7 earth. It is so immense. So what are we doing here on this planet? Why have we come here? And we sought to give some perspective to that in that first part. Also, I quoted some Ginans, which answers this question and to put things into perspective so that we understand how our holy peers have discovered this mystery and made these mysteries evident to us, because we have tendency to forget in the material world about our spiritual being. So the holy peers in the Ginan remind us through that spiritual wisdom what is our objective into this earth and why we have come here. And to put it simply, this whole earth and creation came into being so that we are able to worship our Creator, and eventually find our way and our path to salvation. The other thing that I think at this point I would like to mention is this. And I may have mentioned it last week, but I want to expand on this. One of the beauties of our tariqa that our beloved Imam gives us is by saying to us over and over again that the soul is eternal. The body is not. The physical world is not. But the spiritual world is eternal. And if the spiritual world is eternal and the soul is eternal, then obviously the question is there has to be some formulation to ensure that whatever that is that we are doing into this material world has to be for the hereafter. Let me ask you this question logically. What purpose does it serve? What purpose does it serve to be into the material world and knowing full well everything into this material world in a material way will eventually remain here? Now, you don't have to be religious to know this. What is the purpose of having come into this world, the material world? And you know, in the past I have mentioned to you that in our tariqah, our holy peers have explained to us the purpose for which we have come, and the promises that we have made in our mother's womb to the Imam when we took birth into this world. And we have been guided by the light of Imamah, by the nur of Imamah, into this material world for the purpose of obtaining eternity and to achieve salvation, where the Imam explains to us the focus is that the soul is eternal, not the physical body, not the world. We enter the world, but we have to exit the world. So, and in the course of our living into this world, our beloved Imam has said that the deen and the dunya, they intertwine with one another. They intertwine. So we have to leave both aspects of our world, and we must excel in both of them. We must excel in both of them, in every way. And that is the beauty of our tariqah, that we are able to find the meaning of this life and the distinction between the deen and the dunya by virtue of the holy teachings of our Imam, the talim of the Imam, and the ta'wil our beloved Imam gives to the eternal message. So, the point is this. There is a certain aspect of our responsibility that we must never forget on a daily basis. And what is that responsibility? The responsibility is, like our beloved Imam guided us to say, there are things that you've been told to do, and there are things you have been told not to do. We have to fulfill our material responsibility, and we have to fulfill our spiritual responsibility. Now let me cut it short. Everything that we do into this world, everything, from the day we came into our mother's womb came out into this world. And then the day they are going to actually leave this world, everything that we do, our tariqah teaches us that it is for the benefit of the soul. It must be for the benefit of the soul. It is for the benefit of the soul because that is the permanent element that is in us and that will come with us. Now, I hope that you are not making a distinction between when I say soul and your physical well-being, because the physical part is only a vehicle that the soul is using. This is the disguise into this world that the soul is using. The real you is the soul, not the physical body. This physical body and its organs and all the other subtle bodies, they are simply vehicles. And our sacred and holy tradition give us a very powerful understanding of the relationship between the created world and the eternal and permanent world. And our beloved Imams over and over and over remind us. So I say to you, if everything we do is for the benefit of our soul, then shouldn't we raise the question and say that my physical action, my mental action, my verbal actions, how are they connected to the benefit of my soul? How? And the answer is quite straightforward and quite direct. The only way, the only real way, where there is no doubt, where you will have no problem understanding, and where you will be given absolute, complete, and total assurance that whatever action you take, mentally, verbally, physically, or in any other way, will be beneficial for the soul. I repeat and I underline, beneficial for the soul. You always have to ask yourself, am I behaving in accordance with the holy farmans of the Imam? Am I following the farmans of the Imam? And you know, I have said it in the past, and I'm saying it now. One of the most amazing grace, blessing, call it divine gift that has come from the highest of the heaven and treasuries of the Imam is this Diamond Jubilee Farman that our beloved Imam has released for the Jamaat's blessings. And I say to you in all humility and respect, don't waste 1 second of your life in not reading, understanding, mastering, rereading, and making these holy farmans of the Diamond Jubilee, because they are truly diamonds. They are bags of diamonds. Make these farmans part of your consciousness, part of the life that you follow. These farmans that shows us the path to the future. These holy farmans that brings light into our intellect, light into our heart, light into our soul. This is the only path of certainty. And it is these blessings in the Holy Farman and the blessings of the Imam that he has given us that we must every single day of our life, and I say it with utmost conviction to you, as you should have, that these holy farmans of the Imam is the path of our salvation. So you know, we must play our role in humility and in acceptance and in seeking to understand what these holy farmans are into our life. So I was responding to the question, and I was responding to the notion of everything that we do into this life has to benefit the soul. Otherwise, whatever you do that is not benefiting the soul, it's going to stay here. It's not going to bring you the benefit that you need. And our faith, which is a faith of the intellect, requires the believer to exercise his or her reason, logic, understanding, as guided by the Imam in the Holy Farmans, that we act and behave in this society, whichever society in which we live, in accordance with the ethics of the faith. And remember, this ethics is not something that comes from anywhere. In our tariqah, it is the Imam of the time who actually gives a definition and meaning of what the ethics of the faith is. And those definition and meaning are in the Holy Farmans. Of the Holy Farmans, Imam is made in the past, they are in the Diamond Jubilee Farman, and they are everywhere where the Imam brings his holy light to humanity. Read the Holy Farmans, master them, make them part of your heart, and also read the speeches of Hazrat Imam. Because in those speeches, our beloved Imam explains the many facets of how our tariqah, Islam, and in fact humanity comes together. And that is an amazing blessing that we have. No book, no teacher, no intellectual, no one can bring that resonance, that consonance, that integration, the way in which our beloved Imam is doing for our tariqah, for Islam at large, and for humanity. And in sharing with you these perspectives on the soul's quest for the light, all of these come into play. But like every spiritual esoteric aspect, matters of the soul in our tariqah are intimate, they are private, are intimate matters. And because they are intimate, we are limited by the notion that we can only say so much. But in saying so much, the expectation is that you would understand for yourself at your own level and hopefully connect the dots inside of yourself. And you know that because the notion of salvation in our soul is an intimate relationship between the soul of the murid and the nur of Mola Bapa himself. So I wish to re-emphasize at this moment an important point of contact. And that important point of contact is the awakening of the soul into this quest. The soul's quest for the light, the soul's search for that light in our tariqah is related. Sure, the soul stays awakened and not gone to sleep. Because the tendency in the material world, as our beloved Imam has said in 8th Farman, that it is to ignore the spiritual part of our life. And you remember that in that Farman that the Imam made to the Jamaat, he said, none of you must ignore this. None of you must ignore this. Because he said, you will be unhappy and your children will be unhappy. Because he said it's not possible to live your life in a material world and not to perform your prayer prayers, your ibadah, and yet find happiness. The notion of happiness in our tariqah is related to the knowledge of the soul. And again, our beloved Imam has guided us to say, in no uncertain term, and I would like you, if I may please, make that humble request to you, that you remember this one sentence from the teachings of our beloved Imam. And what is that sentence? The sentence is, he who forgets the soul is unhappy. And then our beloved Imam, when describing that you can see many people around us, they have material wealth, they have all things that are quote-unquote material. But because the soul is forgotten, all those things, and I'm just using my words, they become meaningless. No amount of wealth, no amount of material possession can give you that happiness that our tariqah seeks to give by the grace and blessings of the Imam to the believer who follows our esoteric path. So he who forgets the soul is unhappy. And so I say to yourself at this stage, in part of this quest, is your soul awakened? Are you keeping your soul awake? And if so, how so? How have we been asked in our tariqah to ensure that the soul remains awake so it receives that grace and blessing that the Holy Imam seeks to give us? And please do remember, there are multiple interventions in our tariqah that exist in order to ensure that our soul stays awake. So, let me pose you this question. In order to understand this notion of the awakening of the soul, and I'm coming to some details, ask yourself in your heart and in your intellect, what is the relationship? What is your relationship with the Holy Imam of the time? What is your relationship? Mola Bapa says to us, my beloved spiritual children, are you saying to him, my beloved spiritual father and mother? What is your relationship? How do you define that relationship in your heart, in your mind, in your thinking, in your intellect, in your soul, in the practice of your faith? How do you define that relationship? What are the connecting points of that relationship? What is the knowledge that is guiding you into that relationship? So that's a question mark. The other question is, what is your understanding of the divine, the esoteric, the hakikat, and marifat, spiritual position of the Imam of the time? What does it mean when we understand that the Holy Imam is the Noor? And what is that Noor in this world? What is the understanding behind that? How do you make that relationship and that contact with the first question? The other thing is, in relationship to this, if you say to yourself, based on the principles of our faith, that I am seeking this salvation and I am seeking this light, I am questing for this light, I am searching for this light. It is the source quest for that light, under the guidance of the Holy Imam. Always remember this. Now, before I go any further, I have to once again re-emphasize, because of the nature of questions that people ask, I want to be clear. When we say life under the guidance of the Holy Imam. What are we actually saying? What are we actually meaning? Well, one thing is for certain. Because this search is conducted under the guidance of the Holy Imam, then the meaning of it is like when an individual, when a person, think about this, okay? And I'd like your feedback if you think there's a flaw in my logic or in my analogy. I'm giving an example and I'll come back to it. When a person decides to go into a plane because they want to go to a certain destination, so you want to go from point A to point B, what do? Let's say hypothetically, you go online, you find an airline, you eventually buy a ticket, you work out all the details, you prepare yourself to undertake that trip, you show up at the airport, you follow all the procedures, you are in the plane, and now the plane is taken off, and you've been told to fasten your seatbelt and all the procedures. You're in the plane sitting and saying, after all that, finally I'm sitting and I am going to the destination that you intended for. The point I'm trying to make, did you know what you just did by doing all of that? You have put your life in the hands of the pilot. Did you check if there was a pilot? Did you check the pilot's qualification to fly that plane? Did you go to the pilot and say to the pilot, "Excuse me, Captain, I am going to be into this plane and my life is in your hands. And I hope you can land me safely where I'm going." Do you get up every now and then from your seat and go to the cockpit and figure out whether the pilot is flying the plane or playing some games, video games? Mind you, these days planes are so automated and computerized, the pilot can probably afford to do that. But have you made the check and balances? Did you, before you buy the ticket, decide and say, "Oh my God, what is the plane? How is this plane going to fly? Is this plane safe? Is the person and the people into this plane, like the pilot, the co-pilot, the navigator, the flight engineer, and all the other stuff that are there, are they people whom I can trust? Can I trust them?" Do you do that? You can apply the same logic in many other instances, that when you are sick, you entrust your body to a qualified physician who will tell you how, hopefully, through the knowledge they have, to get out of this sickness and so on. So now I'm asking you this same question related to the soul. So you want to achieve salvation. The quest is based on my subject today, the soul's quest for that light. Meaning, if I can put it to you into a very practical meaning, based on the holy Farman explained by our beloved Imam. And the teaching our beloved Imam gives us is that after death, I underline that, there should be no separation from the soul of the murid, where it's the next world, and the nur of no separation. And here we are basically stating exactly that we are questing, searching for that light, and the Imam is telling us what that end result will be. So now I ask you the question based on the analogies I've given you. To whom you have entrusted your soul for the purpose of this quest and eventually arriving as a result, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To whom have you entrusted your soul? After all, is this not a quest? You are searching, and we have been asked, Mola Bapa says to us in a Farman, search. And you know what I mean. And we are searching under his guidance. Under his guidance means that if you have accepted that, you are telling Mola Bapa, I am entrusting my soul to you. Does it make sense? And if you say to Mola Bapa, I am entrusting my soul to you, it means you are saying, I am not concerned about any other elements outside the fact of your guidance into my spiritual search and into my spiritual results. And that is one of the reasons why in our tariqah, our beloved Imam gives us the understanding and says, this guidance that we seek, the search, and especially the result, is given. It's given. I repeat, given. In which case, you have to understand that there is the possibility that when it is given, because it is a grace, it is a blessing, that indeed it is the formulation with which you have agreed. And that means you do not go outside that path. Why? It's the path of Nur, for the soul. And as the Farman stated, the Imam knows all about the path that leads to salvation. So is that your goal? Is that our goal into this life? I would tell you emphatically, I would tell you categorically, with full conviction, that is indeed our goal into this life. If that being the case, then that path of Nur is the path of the soul that the Imam is guiding us to follow. And that is Mola Bapa's holy guidance and his farmans in this path that brings that light and enlightenment. Do not forget, Mola Bapa's farman is enlightenment of the highest nature. Of the highest nature. There is nothing missing into this enlightenment. And therefore you say to yourself, that being so, is it necessary for me to begin to add ingredients into there? It's almost like going to the pilot and say to the pilot, by the way, can you do this, can you do that, or maybe can you phone somebody and get some instruction about this or that? Wow. You know, it's a dangerous thing to do these days. They'll probably arrest you thinking that you're interfering with the pilot's function. I'm simply mentioning and saying that if, you know, the question I raised, what is your understanding of the divine, spiritual, esoteric, batini, marifat understanding of who the Imam is? Now, if you have that knowledge and understanding given from our peers, and you know that in my lectures I have been heavily emphasizing, and I've said to you, look at, for example, the Ginan Haq to Paktu. 5 verses, but it says everything that needs to be said about who the Holy Imam is. If you understand that, then you will know and you will understand. And if you do so, need you then ask that I need to go elsewhere to find out what I must practice into my spiritual path? It would be a very grave mistake to do that. Because you cannot, on the one hand, say to the Imam that, Mola Bapa, I am entrusting my soul to you. Now you guide me, bless me, show me the path so that I can reach salvation. Meaning that after that, my soul can become one with you. I'll have to say something more about this point a little later, because that's one of the aspects of our tariqah that no other spiritual explanation you will find anywhere. But I'll share it with you. So, if you say that to Mola Bapa, then Mola Bapa says to you, all right, you have come to the Imam, and you are saying to the Imam, guide me. And the Imam says, do this. And that's very clear. The Imam himself makes it very clear. My point is, do not mix the spiritual path the Imam is giving us with any other ingredients outside. It is inappropriate. This is almost like saying to Mola Bapa, oh, you know what? There are certain things I need to do here because you haven't said that I should do them. Well, if the Imam hasn't mentioned it, well, don't do it. Don't do it. Follow strictly what the Imam has said. And you know, there are many teachers out there in this day and age, of information, misinformation, disinformation. And you know what? The internet is by no means the panacea of spiritual knowledge. It's not. Not even material knowledge. It's far from it that you can think you can obtain information that is so accurate and so unquestionable that you can make it a part of your thing. I'm not saying that it is not. What I'm saying is there are many questionable and many debatable aspects of it. But when it comes to spiritual aspect, especially based on our tariqah, make no mistake, that is very specific to us. That's why we are a tariqah that is focused on the haqiqat that is taking us to the marifah. And you know the haqiqat. The haqiqat is the absolutely real of the real, and that is the Imam. It is the Imam's nur. That is our path. That is our faith. Now, I just want to make a side comment here related to some of the things that often appears into the Ginans. You know, for example, a common Ginan that we recite everywhere in the world, wherever the Ginans are recited, is the Anantakaram. And this Ginan has 500 parts by Holy Pir Hassam Tabi'in alayhi salam. And the refrain from this Ginan is, when you look at this Ginan, it says, Hari, at the end of the Ginan, every part of the Ginan, it says, Hari Anante Ana, Hari Anante Jo Swami, Hari Anante Jo Anta Tui Jani Ji. And 500 parts, and we recite this 500 times. And the name Hari, H-A-R-I, if you translate it, excuse me, as you transliterate it into the English alphabet, Hari.
So well done.
And people sometimes mistaken this for something that it is not. Why did our Pir use the word Hari? And sometimes people mistaken this, saying that in some other faith, in some other tradition, is considered to be, quote unquote, a certain God. And they said the Pir directed to that identity. No, the peers don't do that. This is the path of Noor. Always remember this. Ismaili, Satpan, Hakikati, Marifati practice is the path of Noor. It is not anything imported from here and there and made up. The fact that we have a limited understanding, the fact that we may have no understanding, God forbid, the fact that our faith is based on this fundamental guidance of the Noor. How even illogical, forgive me for saying, even how impudent it is to think that somehow we have imported things from somewhere else out there to justify our practice. Really? When the essence, the Noor, the manifest Imam is with us, whom you say in the dua, that Allah says in the Quran, وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ نَسَّنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ, that the knowledge, power, authority, knowledge is with the manifest Imam. So, either you believe in this or you do not. And if you say there is doubt in there, and then we have to go outside our faith to get things to explain our faith, I think there is a serious problem with that kind of thinking. It's either people don't understand it, it's either people lack understanding, or there is a defect into their intellectual and logical modules in the brain. But the fact is, this is the path of the Noor. So what has the Pir said when they use the word Hari? And you know what? As they say, if all else fails, open a dictionary. In this case, open a Sanskrit dictionary. The dictionary will give you a meaning. Don't fabricate meaning. Don't invent meaning. And often enough, it's so sad. You see this fabrication and invention that in fact, most unfortunately, becomes a source of misguidance. I'm not saying it's done purposefully, not at all. I think people mean well, but I'm saying there has to be a more rigorous approach in understanding our faith, a faith which is that of Noor and a faith of the intellect. And in fact, the intellect is Noor. So, what does this mean when you think about this Hari? And it appears in many Jinans. So, Hari, now if you translate this refrain, Hari Anante Ana, Hari Anante Jo Swami, Sha Anante Jo Anta Tui Janiji. What does that mean in translation? It means, so the Holy Pir says, Hari, the forgiver of sins. That's what Hari means. Okay? Hari means he who forgives your sins. Make no mistake. This is not some kind of other God here and there whom other ancient people believed in this and that. No. Open the dictionary, check the meaning. Hari means the one who forgives your sins. And then it refers to Hazrat Ali saying, Nur Maulana Murtaza Ali is eternal. The Imam is eternal. He is boundless. And he is the Lord and Master of eternity. And who knows the end of all ends. This refrain, imagine, appears 500 times because there are 500 verses. And we are saying it 500 times. When will it go into our brain what this thing means? It is so important not to get into a meaning that basically makes no sense. So once again, and I'm saying this because this is relevant when we are doing the quest of our soul, and you will see it in a moment. So basically, Pir Hassan Kabir Din, in this Holy Jinan, he says that, so I'm just taking one part of the Jinan, right? And this part, actually I'm tempted to take a few, but this one here says, Ashaji, because I was speaking about Mola Bapa being our spiritual father and mother, right? And he said Mola Bapa calls us spiritual children. So, this part connects and says what it is. It says, Ashaji, Tamehi Mata, ne Tamehi Pita, Tamehi Nora Samiji, Siraband Tame Bando Mora Sami, Anant Ko Bha Uthai, Hari Anant Te Anant, Hari Anant Tejo Swami, Sha Anant Tejo Amtatui Janiji. So this verse, what does it say? Remember what I said to you, the question that I raised? What is the connection? And I'm saying, I'm bringing this because I want you to be affirmed, assured, certain that's the connection we are making. So this part I recited, it says, "O my Lord, you are my mother, and you are my father, and you are also the Lord and Master of my whole being." Remember this word, my whole being. Grant me your protection and make me one of those who receive the eternal salvation on the day of judgment. And then, Hari, referring to Hazrat Ali and to the Imam, you are the forgiver of sins. Nur Maulana Murtaza Ali is eternal. Mola Bapa, you are eternal and boundless. And you are the master of eternity, who knows the end of all ends. Can I ask you something? Do you know when the end of all end is for you? Do you know that path? Do you know where you will end up? As the English expression goes, I can't even tell further than the tip of my nose, even that. No one knows. Doesn't mean you can't know. You can. No one knows. But and let me emphasize this, do understand. You see this part I quoted? It answers that question that I raised, which is, what is the connection? When Imam says to us, my beloved spiritual children, and we acknowledge it, remember this Ginan is spiritual wisdom. It's the spiritual wisdom of the soul. And what is our Holy Pir teaching us here? That it says, oh Lord, you are my mother, you are my father. Sorry to be repetitive, but because it connects to some other points I'm coming in a second. You are my father, you are my mother, you are also the master of my whole being. So that's the point I was getting to. So now I'm saying to the Imam, you are my father, you are my mother, you are the master of my whole being. Meaning, you are the one on whom I have entrusted my body, mind and soul. Tan, man and dhan. Mola Bapa, you are the master of my whole being. This is the protection of the bayat we have with the Holy Imam. And then we are saying to the Imam, Mola Bapa, please grant me protection. We are saying to the Imam, grant me protection, protect me, and make me one of those who is to receive the eternal salvation on the day of judgment. Our quest is indeed culminating on the basis of this, whereby we are saying to our beloved Imam, through the supplication in this Ginan, we are saying that grant me your protection, Hazar Imam, and make me one of those who is to receive the eternal salvation on the day of judgment. By the way, just to let you know, that, when our beloved Imam came on the Silver Jubilee here in Vancouver, it was on April 21st, 1983. April 21st, 1983. when our beloved Imam came for that silver jubilee, this verse of Anantakaru that I just mentioned is one that we recited in front of the Holy Imam. Now remember one thing. The recitations that we perform in front of the Holy Imam are supplications. We're asking the Holy Imam this divine gift. Now there were 3 verses we recited. Because of time, I'm just taking this last verse, but I will speak about the other 2 verses. Imagine we are making a supplication. We are making a, if you like, as we say, that we are beseeching from the Holy Imam His holy grace and divine mercy upon our soul. What did we ask the Imam? And what did we say about the Imam? Look, I'm sorry, I have to mention the first verse because it connects to the question I raised. What is the relationship that we can say who the Imam is? And look, as I said, this is on record. We recited this in front of the Imam. April 21st, 1983, the Silver Jubilee occasion. So what was the part? The part we recited was, there were 3 parts, so I said the last one, and this is the first one. We said, Ashaji, Patal Tani Suje Jane, Sohi Dhani Ya Ayaji, Trutwina Jene Bandaj Bandia, So Nar Ape Betha, Hari Anante Ana, Hari Anante Jo Swami, Sha Anante Jo Anta Tui Janiji. This is the exact verse and words. We did not change any words. We kept these very words in front of the Holy Imam. What does this part mean? This part means the Lord of the age, referring to the Imam, who is the possessor of the knowledge of the unseen, and know what is hidden under the deepest layers of the earth, structure and creation. That Lord has now come here. Imagine this. We are telling Maula Bappa, sitting on his takat, and we are reciting this holy Ginam that our Pir kindly taught us, and we are saying, "Oh Lord of the age," this is how we call him. You who is the possessor of the knowledge of the unseen, right? Knowledge of the unseen. Think about it. What is knowledge of the unseen? The knowledge of the 7 heaven and 7 earth and knowledge even beyond that. And knows what is hidden under the deepest layer of the earth structure. That Lord has come here. He's sitting right here. And then what do we say to him? We say to him, the same Lord, the same Master, who has kept the universe in perfect balance. Imagine this. This requires an explanation by itself, but there's no time today for that. But that Lord and that Master, that Noor, who has kept the whole universe into perfect balance, is manifested and sitting right here before us. This is the Ginan we recited in front of Mola Bapa to affirm. Why do we recite something like this? To affirm our faith, our iman, that we are faithful mu'min. And Mola Bapa, this is our belief. And this is how we see you and believe in you. So coming back to that word that I was mentioning, the word Hari, into this Ginan. Now there is this third part, which if possible, I may come back at the end and say it. But why I brought this notion of this Ginan? First of all, to explain and justify to you very categorically what happens when we say, "You are my spiritual father and mother." It translates itself, the supplication to the Imam to take us to the salvation. Exactly what we desire into our quest for that light. Meaning, we are seeking that when we leave this material world, that when the soul comes out of the body, it becomes one with the Nur of Hazrat Imam. Now what is Hari? I've already said, but by the meaning of what I just read to you, and that was by this definition, the forgiver of sins. But there is more. There is more. Hari, which literally, I'm giving you a dictionary definition, as I said. Please go and look into a Sanskrit dictionary. Don't take somebody's meaning. Look at the dictionary meaning, because then it will give you that this is a word, a holy title, an alliteration of the Imam. Hari means the remover. He who removes, he who deletes, he who gets rid of sins of human beings. The mere fact, understand this, because this is very important in our subject this evening. The mere fact that a murid of the Imam remembers the Imam, remembers Maula Bapa in his mind, in his heart, and remembers him by this constant spiritual contact that we have. Guess what? The cycles of birth and rebirth that brought us thus far is now gone. Meaning, Maula Bapa will hold our hand until the time we are able and we are graced to receive His mercy, to become one with His Nur. Basically, meaning that when we accept this notion, this understanding, who is this Hari? Who is this Lord who's keeping the universe in balance? Who is this Lord who is Nur and showing us the path of Nur? Who is this Lord who says to us, Farman mane fera kare. If you follow the Farman, the cycles of birth and rebirth are broken and gone. There is no coming back here. You will go into eternity. And your quest to reach the light of the Imam will be fulfilled. Why? Why? Because it is His light. It is His Nur. It belongs to Him. He is the Nur. And He will decide whom He wants to make part of His Nur. Allah guides to His light whom He wills. Hazrat Imam guides to His Nur whom He wills. That means following His holy Farman, which is Nur. So, if our quest is that of the Nur, then this is it. It is His Nur. And only He can admit us to that Nur. Not anyone else out there. Not any other ingredients out there. They are irrelevant. They make no difference. In fact, they will only corrupt and create a mix-up. No, don't allow that. Be strict to yourself. Be very formal to yourself. Never deviating from the path. Do you remember what was said by the great philosopher, what Socrates said? The least initial deviation from the truth is multiplied later 1,000-fold. If you go away from the truth, if you go away from the hakikat that the Imam is showing us and teaching us through his holy farmans and through his talim and through the tawil our beloved Imam gives, if you go away from the truth, you will be so far away, you will not be able to reconcile because you are so far away you've lost track. So these Greek philosophers were very wise because they learned this from Socrates, who was a prophet in Greece. Remember this. The least initial deviation from the truth is multiplied later 1,000-fold. Don't go away from the truth. There is no benefit. Stay with the truth. Stay with the haqiqah. Stay with the guidance and the Farman Imam is telling us. That is where the quest is. That will take us unto His light by Maula Bapa's mercy, Maula Bapa's grace, Maula Bapa's blessing, Maula Bapa's love to us. Remember when we speak about love? I spoke yesterday when we were talking about the notion of faith. What is faith? Faith is nothing but love and devotion in the heart of the believer for the Imam. And what did the Imam say to us? What did Maula Bapa say to us? Maula Bapa said to us, I love you 100 times more than you could ever love me. And you must be strong in this knowledge. You know, our whole Ismaili faith, from A to Z, from Alpha to Omega, is based on love. Love includes knowledge. Love includes this hakikat and marifat. There will be a day we will speak about it. But love includes knowledge. It includes faith. Faith means nothing but love in the heart for the Imam. And that love for the Imam, the root of that love, do not forget, the proof of that love is Dason, and Dason. And once Dason is there, our dua, our ibad, our love for Mawla becomes accepted. Everything I say to you right now and before is based on this foundation of Dason. I've said a lot about it. I don't want to go back into it, but I'll keep bringing it. But this is what it is for now. So the quest is indeed in this relationship of our relationship with the Imam. And let me emphasize that. Our beloved Imam said that our tariqah, our faith is a personal faith. It's an intellectual faith. It's an esoteric faith. He mentioned that in Dar es Salaam. I think it was in Dar es Salaam for a moment, maybe in Wanza. But it's an esoteric faith. You understand that? Esoteric means the batin. It's a personal faith. Your personal relationship with the faith and the way you practice the faith. Meaning, when you say, Maula Bapa is my spiritual father and mother, you have that personal relationship. And it is an intellectual faith. Meaning, the substance of our intellect, logic, reasoning, and much more so, comes into play in seeking to understand and follow our faith, where it cannot be contradicted by whimsical ideas. You know, I'd like to add a point here, if I may, and that is to say, sometimes people say, sometimes people say that, oh, you know, our parents and their parents and our grandparents, they followed our faith because they were, and they used this expression, Gore Manesrevo. I tell you, I cringe, and I said to myself, what kind of analysis and what kind of meaning is this? If this is not stupidity at its highest depth. You are saying that our parents and forefathers, because they did not have the education people claim today, a university degree and so on, and they were Gore Manesrevo. You know what they mean by that, right? They mean people who say this, right? And none else but the so-called educated people who say this. You know what they say? They are saying, oh, they were following a blind faith. Really? Are you absolutely serious? You are saying that when they follow the guidance of the Imam of their time, whether it was Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam, Imam Aga Ali Shama Baba alayhi salam, Hassan Shama Baba alayhi salam, or let us say Hazrat Ali alayhi salam, all the way that they were following the faith blindly. Well, you are in for a big surprise, right? Because our beloved Imam, when he assumed the holy throne of Imamah, in October of 1958, if I'm not mistaken in my date, also in Dar es Salaam, he spoke about the faith of our forefathers. When he assumed the throne of Imamah, Maulana Bapa spoke to the whole world, not just in Dar es Salaam, the whole world, to say the faith of our forefathers. And then, 60 years later, during the Golden Jubilee, his global message, Other Imam says, the faith of your forefathers. So really, I'm saying to these so-called educated people, you know, you call the faith of our forefathers blind faith. What faith are we following today? You know, these are the blind people who make such statements. Ismaili Hakikati Sattant Dharam is based on the illumination of the intellect that comes from the Noor of Hazrat Imam, right from the time of Hazrat Ali to our present beloved Imam. It is an insult to our faith to say that people are following the faith blindly. They were not blind. They may not have the piece of paper that you have that's purely material. It's a material piece of paper with your material knowledge. Will you, with your piece of paper, whether it is a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD, so that you have spiritual knowledge, you have knowledge of the soul? Come forward if that is the case. Show us what your education has taught you about the soul. I'm sorry, this is not something that I say by way of challenge, but I'm saying in utmost humility. I'm saying to you, we must be proud of our tariqah and seek to understand the deeper layers and meaning. And our ginans are one of the dimensions that allows us to understand that, including the farmans, including the loving devotion and explanation given in the qasidas and other devotional forms that we have. It is not blind. It is not blind. Let me tell you that. Therefore, knowledge of the soul is at the level of hakikat. You know, there is this description that I have to say. It's called knowledge that comes from the realm of the senses, knowledge that comes from the realm of the mind, and knowledge that comes from the realm of contemplation or the soul. What is knowledge that comes from the realm of the mind? Or knowledge that comes from the realm of the physical world? Well, there is this differentiation. And knowledge that is purely physical, it's not included in the knowledge of the realm of the mind, but the mind includes the physical. And that which is knowledge of the realm of spirituality includes knowledge that is physical and knowledge that is of the mind. But the reverse is not true. That's why people end up into what is known as a category error. There's a category error. So people say, oh, you talk about the soul. And I'm talking generally, not particularly me. But I'm saying people say, you talk about the soul. Okay. So prove to me, show me what the soul is like. I'm sure you've met people like that. And you know what my answer is? My answer is to them is, he says, well, look, before you can go to the soul, do you accept we all have a mind? Of course we have a mind. We have a mind because psychologists say so. And the various branches of psychology that exist, whether we talk about the cognitive sciences, whether we talk about all other branches that basically bring the notion of cognition. And I know there are different branches and they articulate different things. And there is this big debate about consciousness and so on. But I don't think anybody today in the realm of our knowledge that we are today can deny the notion of the mind. Before, there was a big problem. We only understood the brain, and even today, we still don't understand everything about the brain. But still, we accept the fact we have something that we call the mind. So now, ask these people, even ask the most talented scientists in this domain of knowledge and say, have you actually captured the mind? And show me the mind in a bottle. Show me the mind in a jar. Or show me where this mind is hanging. Where is it? Has anybody actually seen what the mind is? More importantly, you claim you have a mind. Have you seen your mind? What is the mind? A spiritual knowledge answers that question in a very graphic, physical way. But material knowledge cannot answer that question because the mind is non-material. Anyway, that's one of the responses. But eventually we will, I don't know, we have time later on, whenever, when Mola gives us His mercy and grace to understand these things. But currently there is what they call the bottom-up system, the top-down system, that people say, well, the mind is an emergence of the brain. It's the brain that creates the substance of the mind. And then there are those who say, oh, no. The mind is something that comes from above and functions over the brain, like software and hardware. But anyway, they don't concern us. The point I wanted to make is, remember the blessings in our tariqah. Let's not wrongly label it. Let's be proud of our tariqah. Let's be of those who have an investigative mind of our tariqah, that we seek to understand more and more and more. What does it mean, what our tariqah says? Because our beloved Imam confirms our tariqah is an intellectual tariqah. It is an esoteric tariqah. And it is a personal tariqah. So does that make it blind? That people have to say our forefathers were following a blind faith? Does it not surprise you? When Mola Baba assumed the throne of the Imamate, he says the faith of our forefathers, and 60 years later in the Diamond Jubilee, he says the faith of your forefathers. This is the Noor. This is the Noor speaking to us. And you are telling us that Imam is alluding to the fact that what our forefathers believed and understood was blind, their following was blind. I think we are blind. I think we have fossilized our thinking out of arrogance of our education and basically making those kind of statements. We have a lot to learn, a long way to go. And therefore, we have to ask ourselves, did we miss the boat? Because Imam had to repeat the same thing 60 years later. We missed the boat. So the beloved Imam, out of his loving kindness and mercy, Hazar Imam is reminding us about the faith of our forefathers. And that is what we are doing, and we are exploring in, hopefully, these interventions and lecture. And I try to the best of my ability. And there are so many things, but we have to go back into our spiritual history and understand this. So let's proceed further. I know it's, I'm looking at my clock, it's around 9:30, but we'll take a few more minutes. We might have to make part 3. I don't want to make a part 3, but there's so much to be said. Now, I have to respond to some of the questions that had come before. This is not a question and answer period, but it's related to the part 1 that I said. And then I'm coming to the conclusion, okay? But two or three very important things that I have to mention. So, do you remember in my last part 1 presentation, I had made a reference to, it was a verbal reference, and I said to you that we are rendering the accounts of our deeds, verbal, spiritual, and mental, every single day. And I mentioned to you, our soul is removed from the body every day, and this account is rendered to the Holy Imam on the throne. It's there. So someone said, please, we like to see what that verse of the Quran is. So here it is. It is the chapter of the cattle, Cattle, and verse number 60. Okay? And I think it's chapter 6, surah number 6 of the Quran. Look what it says. I'm just reading to you the verse of the Holy Quran. It says, "It is He who takes your souls by night and has knowledge of all that you have done by day. By day He raises you up again, that a term appointed be fulfilled. In the end, unto Him will be your return. Then He will show you the truth of all that you did." Wow. This is the verse in the Quran. Very quickly. It is He who takes your soul by the night. It's clear. And has knowledge of all that you have done by day. So whatever you've done during the day, He has knowledge of it. By day He raises you up again, that a term appointed be fulfilled. What does that mean? Your soul was taken out. He has knowledge of what you did by the day. You rendered your account. And now He sent your soul back into the physical body. And He says, "I have given you another term of life. So fulfill your terms." Because He could have kept the soul, and the surprise would have been, you are no longer alive that morning. The soul is gone. But it says, He raises you up again, that a term appointed be fulfilled. And then He reminds us, in the end unto Him will be your return. Then He will show you the truth of all that you did. Imagine this. Then He will show you the truth of all that you did. So your record will be made evident. Right? So now here, when I mentioned that, and of course people rightly so, sometimes they ask some question. And one thing they said, that, in our dua, when we finish the dua, and before we give Shajadidah, we raise our hand and we touch our left shoulder, right shoulder, or left shoulder, whichever way people do it. He said, has that anything to do with the two angels I mentioned, Nakir and Munkar, that are on our shoulder? And I said, yes. Yes, that's an excellent question. And what has that to do with those angels? Well, if you read the Holy Dinans, our Holy Peers explains to us the whole ceremony of Shajadidah. And in that context of the ceremony, and even Imam Sultan Amacha, by the way, made two farmans related to this, and someday we'll bring it up. Two farmans of the Imam related to Shajadidah, but our Holy Peers explained and says, before you give Shajadidah to the person on the right or on the left, or whichever way it is available to you, and you know what Shajadidah means? That may you be blessed with the holy didar of the Imam. He says, first we are offering that blessing to the angels that are on our shoulders. So we say, Shajadidah, Shajadidah, and then to the two brothers or sisters on our left or right hand side. Look at the ceremony of Shajadidah. It is intended to remind us about these two angels who are actually taking accounts and keeping the accounts of what we do. Anyway, later in some time we will talk about our customs and ceremonies, and then maybe we'll see. So the next verse of the Quran, look at this one here. It says, He is irresistible. Now this continues with the first. This is verse 60, this is 61. Say, He is the irresistible, watching from above over His worshippers. And He sets guardians over you. Here it comes. He sets guardians over you. At length, when death approaches of you, our angels take heed when death approaches, our angels fail in their duty. So here is a verse in the Quran that says that He watches everything that we do from above. And He watches His worshippers. And then He sets guardians over us, talking about His angels. And He says that at length, when death will come, and I'll say something about it in a moment, when death will come, when death approaches on one of you, our angels takes his soul and they never fail into their duty. Meaning when death is prescribed and death comes, the angels who have been ordered to take the soul, they never fail into their duty. It's going to happen. It's the verse of the Quran. And then there is this third verse, verse 62. It says, then men are returned unto God. So now the soul is come out and is returned unto God. Their protector. The only reality. And it continues and says, is not He is the command. You remember I keep always mentioning to you, the soul is by His command. So yeah, this verse says that is not He is the command. And He is the swiftest in taking account. So the point of all of this is basically to say to you that remember, as an Imam in the Farman, I read you in part 1, that we are accountable. There is an account to be rendered. And these are 3 verses that further explains, and I mentioned these in the paraphrase, I'm giving you the reference so you can think and you can study them. Now, coming to some of the aspects about this question of this life. There are so many perspectives, but I want to take some practical one. There is this Quran that we studied last week, the few verses. In this one Quran, I'll just go straight into the meaning. And I have the Quran, but it is just time. Our Imam Vega in this Quran says that every single day you breathe, you say, carry 21,600 breaths. Okay? 21,600 breaths. Imam Begum says, AG 21,600 damadin mein gatta hai. Every day you breathe 21,600 breaths, or if you like, your life is being reduced by 21,600 breaths every day. Let me quickly explain. In the spiritual wisdom of the past, a human life was measured by the number of breaths, not by 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 90 years as we do today. That's the physical measure of time. Excuse me. The spiritual measure of time, if you like, or rather the spiritual measure of life was breath. How many breaths do you take in a lifetime? That was the issue. Why? Why do we measure breath? Because look at the logic, look at the intelligence behind the statement. Okay? When a human being is born, what's the first thing? You know, Mola Bapa in one of the Farman says that when you are born and Allah gives you breath and the child cries, life comes in. Life comes in. You know, the word ruh. You know, we say ruh as that Quranic verse. Kul al-ruh min amra rabbi. The soul is by the command of my Lord. This word ruh, that, you know, you can translate it as spirit, and in our tariqah, Mawla Bapa uses the word soul, which is what it is. This word ruh has the same root as the word breath and soul are connected. So when a human being is born, it takes that first breath, it connects to this phenomena of the soul that is already inside that body. Because remember, it's coming into the physical life. It needs that physical air for the lungs to be filled. And it's amazing what Maulana Bapa explained in that regard. But that is what it is. So what happened in the ancient time, I should say, but the spiritual wisdom of life was, life begins when you take that breath, and then what happens? At the end of that life, we say, he gave his final breath. He gave out his breath. His final breath came out, and we call that death. But when it came out of the womb of the mother, he took that breath and life came in. There was life. So life was measured in the number of breaths. Look at the wisdom in the Gnan, okay? Amazing wisdom. We don't think we take breath for granted, right? Breathing is what it is. Thank God, at least we have breath. So now, what has that breath got to do with anything? In our Gnan, like in this particular verse, Imam Begum explains that every single day you are reducing your breath by 21,600 breaths. What does that mean? It means that in 24 hours you take 21,600 breaths. That means 900 breaths in 1 hour. So every hour of the day, on an average, remember we are talking about the statistical average, 900 breaths in a day, in 1 hour. And you are taking 15 breaths in 1 minute. Now you may wonder, what has that got to do with anything? What has that to do with the quest of the soul for that light? It has everything to do with it. Because based on that spiritual wisdom of the breath connected to the soul, you have been given a certain number of breaths. This is how it is counted. And here, Imam Begum is reminding us, every day you are reducing the breath by 21,600. And why is she reminding us? Because she says, she's asking the question to the true believer and said, are you simply extending or spending all this breath in your material trade? Remember, we are living in a material world. So we are trading because breath means life. Are you just trading this material trade using your 21,600 breath? Then she asked the more important question. I just read you the question because it says in a Gnan. She says, Tum kya kamata hai? Uttajag mana mera. So Imam Begum is giving this analogy and says, how many of these breaths have been beneficial to you? How many of these breaths are giving you profit-making breaths? Or are all these breaths wasted? Are all these breaths just wasted? At the end of your day, at the end, when the soul will exit the body, there will be accountable. And the account is going to be, did you create the air that you were breathing? No. Who gave you this air? God gave me this air. Allah gave me this air. Maulana Bapa himself is Patal Dhani. He gave me that air. Okay. How much of that air that you breathed was the quality that brought you profit? How much of that air was qualitative, not quantitative? Did you simply expand all this air? You know, we have this expression that we use in English, right? We say, oh, he's full of hot air. You know what that means? Yeah, unfortunately, that's what it's coming up to. So Imam Begum is reminding us how much of this breath that you are taking every day, that's reducing 21,600, 900 breaths every hour, 15 every minute. So every minute of the day, think, 15 breaths have gone by. I have less than 15 breaths left into my account. How much of that air was beneficial? How much of that air, of that breath, brought you profit? What did you plant with that breath that is going to bring you profitable fruit? And you know the answer. We have been told in no uncertain terms that you are wasting your breath. This is the other expression we have, right? You understand that expression. And when people say something, you basically tell them, you know what? You're wasting your breath. Well, this is what the peer is saying. Imam Begum says, you know, don't waste your breath. You know, yes, you have to live in the dunya successfully. That's what you've been given. But what about expanding some of those breath spiritually? And what does that mean? You deliberately, and look, this is not something I'm giving you philosophically. Do you remember the farman of the Imam of the time? He basically tell us, don't let material life overcome your physical life. So your life. Don't just be physical. Remember your material life. What is the Imam saying to us? Now I have to paraphrase because time is going so fast, but I have the farman here. The Imam is saying to us, take your tasbih. Take your tasbih. And call on the tasbih. The name of Allah. The name of Hazrat Ali. The name of the Holy Prophet. The name of the Imam. The name of the Imams, like we say in the dua. The name of the Imam of the time. Any breath that you take in the name of the Imam, in the name of Allah, in the name of the Holy Prophet, that breath is a breath that will bring you profit, is a profitable breath. Any breath that you have taken when you have forgotten that, it's a breath that's been wasted. So now, remember the ayats of the Quran I read? An account is being made every single instant. What was the focus in your life? Was it the balance, Wala Bapa said, deen and dunya? Or was it only the dunya, whereby you ate and slept, and made your physical life comfortable? You ran after your lower passions and this and that was the life. You wasted your breath. So I ask you, is this a quest for the light, for the soul? It cannot be, right? We come back to the principle of origin. Meaning, our faith says, as the holy farmans of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah has said, freedom. I have the farman here, but at least maybe one sentence I should read you. And it says that this is farman of the Usuluddin. How can the ignorant one ever be happy? He cannot grasp the haqiqat. He does not want the haqiqat. The ignorant one lets go of the haqiqat. But the one who is fond of haqiqat follows a different road altogether. Like Jesus, Pir Sadaddin, Nasr Khosrow, Pir Shams, and Maulana Rumi did in the days gone by. Such a course is most difficult for the ignorant. So first point very quickly. Do you see where the intellect comes? The opposite of intellect is ignorance. And the Imam says to us in these very farman, those who are not into the haqiqat and don't want them and let them go, they are the ones who are ignorant. But those who follow, that is few names the Imam is giving, Jesus Christ, Isa Nabi alayhi salam, Pir Sadaddin, Nasser Khusro, Pir Shams, Jalaluddin Rumi. The Imam says these are some names, but some beings who they were into the path of haqiqat. And then, just before that, the Maulana Bapa is asking, is saying, what is the difference between the Sharia and the haqiqat? The Imam replies, he is asking the question, and he is replying, there are two different things altogether. One prefers the book, the fast, the prayer, and the other one yearns for freedom. The two are worlds apart. They shall never come together. What's the point of all of this? The point of all of this is, and here is something that I hope you understand it in the most spiritual way. This is the difference between our tariqah in Islam and in any other faith out there, and what our tariqah says on the guidance of the Imam. What are we seeking? Remember, the source quest for that light. We are seeking freedom. Remember this word. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Freedom of the soul. We don't want to be tied up with a book and all these other things that are considered elements that basically cements you and fossilizes your intellect and your soul. But please understand this in the right sense. Understand it in a mature sense. Understand it in a spiritually mature sense. I will be saying a lot more about this in some of the lectures. But because this is the source quest for the light, we have to say it ourselves. You know what? No other elements, and I hope you can understand what I'm trying to tell you. No other elements will take you to that light except freedom. And the path of Nur, Maulana Bapa is showing us, is the path of Nur. The path of freedom is the path of Nur. And there are two fundamental elements that allows us to be on that path. One is that of dasant, and secondly, dua. And then any other obligations you have taken, you have to fulfill it. But remember, dasant comes first, otherwise you are not in that path. Point blank. Dasant and dua. That is the path of Nur. Having said that, that path of Nur does not tie you down with things. It gives you the freedom. It's not this, it's not that. Do it this way, do it that way. Get locked into this and get locked into that. This is why our tariqah practices are treasures of light. They are expressions of the Nur. For God's sake, don't fall into this notion of what they call rites and rituals. You know, it's okay. Do it if you please. But I'm trying to explain to you, there's a fundamental difference. Our path is a path of the Nur for the light. So we have to use it in the right context. And having said that, there is, in all scriptures, you can look at every scripture, and they talk about two things. The notion of faith, which I'm not going into it right now because it will take me half an hour to say what I need to say. But I've said a lot yesterday afternoon. But the last point I do wish to make is, again, from a spiritual point of view, in terms of that quest. Remember, in understanding the breath that we take, our Imam and peers have guided us to say, there is no higher form of ibadat and worship and rendering homage and supplication to our beloved Imam than continually remembering the name of Maula Bapa, the name of the Imam. And Maula Bapa said to us, keep a tasbih with you. Keep a tasbih with you. And multiple times in the day, call the name of the Imam, call the name of Allah, call the name of the Holy Prophet. Now, some people, they are confused when they say, how can we take the name of the Holy Prophet? He was a prophet. Yeah, physically, he was a prophet. But spiritually, Holy Prophet was Noor. We call it Noor al-Nabuwah, Hidayat Noor. The same Noor that is in the Imam. Today, Maula Bapa himself is the Imam, 49th Imam, and he is the 50th Pir. The Noor of Holy Prophet is the Noor of the Pir. I'll come to that at some point. But this equation applies to what the Holy Prophet said. What did the Prophet say? There are so many amazing things that the Holy Prophet said. The word when we say in the dua in Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Wallahu Ahad. Ahad. One of the names of the Holy Prophet, besides Muhammad, and I'm coming to it in a minute, was Ahmad. A-H-M-A-D. Ahmad. So one day the Holy Prophet says, I am Ahmad, I am Muhammad without the meme. So the letter M, if you remove the letter M from Ahmad, what does it become? Ahad. If you remove the letter M from the name of Muhammad, it gives you the same result. He is I am Ahmad, because Ahmad is the root of Muhammad. I'm telling you categorically, this is what the Holy Prophet actually said. Basically saying, don't just look at me physically. I am Ahmad without mim, meaning I am Ahad. I am one with God. So when you say, Ya Muhammad, like we say, Ya Ali, Ya Muhammad, it's the same reality. Also, in our holy dua, we used to say, Ali Muhammad yet Khuda. Ali Muhammad yet Khuda. They are part of one ultimate reality. So the concept of Shah and Pir are hopefully in a very, very near future, I'll have the opportunity to have the privilege of presenting something. But there is a lot of wisdom that we have to dig into the Gilans. And in this context, let me close this evening by saying two things. First of all, once again, a humble request for your knowledge. And I have to tell you this. Nobody has solicited to me. Nobody has come to me to say that I have to say these things. I am telling you out of my own humility and out of my own conviction in what I seek would be beneficial for your knowledge out there. There is a lot of knowledge out there. But to find reliable sources whereby you can even, not only from the standpoint of hakikati understanding, which I am in very embryonic way sharing with you, but there is also knowledge of reason, knowledge of understanding historically, that many of our dais have spoken about it in history, throughout history. And I must tell you, amongst the many things that are out there, in all humility, some of our Ismaili scholars have done amazing work. And some of our Ismaili dedicated individuals have done also amazing work of supplication and dedication. Now, for example, amongst others, I recommend, if you can, please study the work and the academic work that Professor Khalil Andani has done. It's very valuable to understand many things at the level of tariqah, at the level of sharia, at the level of haqiqah. It gives you many aspects of the foundation. Okay? And they're reliable sources because they are referenced. They are academically. It will give you the reason, the logic. And I find it amazingly enlightening by the things that he said. Listen to his lectures when you're there. Also, as I always keep mentioning Ginan, and there are so many beautiful renderings of Ginan in YouTube. Many people have put Ginan there. But I was absolutely moved magnificently by the hundreds of young people who, over time, in the site known as Ginan Guru, have welcomed a pluralism of these young people to express their love, their devotion, their supplication, using ginans and qasidas and devotional rendering. I consider that one of the highest acts of devotion we can render to our holy Imam, because our beloved Imam has asked that we should maintain this holy tradition, and he said it's for generations yet to be born. So, as I said, there are other scholars also who have amazing work. You look at some of the scholars at the Institute. Our institute is so amazingly rich with information. But I said, at least from the ones that I have my humble experience with, is something that you'll be able to find some connection with. And it's work well done. It's academic work that you can relate to because it's understandable, it's comprehensible, it is logical. And Islam is a logical faith. And you will be able, as a murid of the Imam, exercise your intellect by looking at some of those works that I have mentioned. So let me close by simply saying this.
Can I stop you, Alwaz?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's Gulshan here. Alwaz, we have one question, and I wonder if you could address that one before we finish.
Okay.
The question is, how do we stay motivated to wake up for Bandagi with Jamaat Khana being closed currently?
Okay. It's a very important question, and certainly a very relevant question under the circumstances. Look, the way I think I can answer by saying how you can stay motivated. If you permit me, if I may, simply tell you this. When you go to sleep, before you go to sleep, because you are the one seeking motivation, right? When you go to sleep, in your mind, remember this. Remember this. And this is not just something I'm telling you because I'm making it up. No. This is what our peers have guided us to remember. It isn't enough. Mola Bappa himself is standing by your bedside. He's there all the time. And I can give you the truth. Right? I have the farmad. I'll quote it into my next lecture, inshallah. But if you are serious, if you are honest, in matters of spiritual practice, you have to be humble. You have to be serious. You have to be honest. Okay? And what about it? You have to know. Mola Bappa himself is standing by my bedside. And by standing in my bedside, he is fully expecting. Because remember, Mola Bappa didn't tell you that. You went to Mola Bappa. You went to the Imam of the time and said, Mola Bappa, guide me. My soul is questing your light. The soul's quest for this light. Mola Bappa, guide me. So Mola Bappa said, all right, I'll guide you. I'll come and I'll wake you up. I'll be standing by your bedside. And I know Khan is slow, you said. Of course, Khan is an amazing motivator to get there. Point is, Mola Bapa is standing by your side. This is not imagination. This is reality. This is absolute reality. Right? Now, you put your alarm. Put your alarm. And when that alarm rings, you know, the ring that you hear, if you have a ring or any other way, that ring is, Mola Bapa is saying to you, I am here. Are you waking up? So let me tell you this. Our Holy Peer says, he doesn't sleep the whole night. In anticipation, look at Mola Bapa's love for us. Okay? I'm so glad this question was asked. He does not sleep the whole night. And why? In anticipation that we will wake up with a promise that we have made, seeking His light, His mercy, His grace. You know the one thing that I have to tell you about motivation? I won't say it today because there are so many, but one thing I'm going to tell you. Do you know what happens to a person who wakes up during that time known as Waqt Nurani, the time of Nur? The time of Nur, let me be very clear, the time of Nur, often referred to in the Holy Ginan as Madrat. Madrat literally may mean midnight, but I'm not talking about midnight, okay? We have nothing to do with that issue of midnight. Many people do prayers at midnight. Alhamdulillah, shukr, please do it. And nobody says you shouldn't. You can say prayers at any time of the day or the night. And if you're doing it at midnight, may Allah bless you for it. But I'm saying the concept of Madrat is between 3 to 5. And between 3 to 5, the time of ibadat is 4 to 5. Right? And we will have an opportunity to go deep into the details at some point. The point is this, that this period is known as Waqt Nurani, the time of enlightenment, the time of the Nur. And at that time of the Nur, the Imam is present with those who are honest, sincere, and those who seek the help of Hazrat Imam to perform Mola Bapa's bandi, because if the bandi is given by Mola Bapa himself, and Mola Bapa comes and wakes you up, you may use your alarm, you may use whatever instrument you have to wake you up, okay? And if you're honest, you're sincere, when that alarm rings, you're going to say, my Imam is here, my Imam is with me. And it is time for me to have the opportunity to have this one-on-one, let me repeat it, one-on-one spiritual dialogue with my Imam. This is what ibadat is, at one level. At another level, if you're honest, if you're sincere, you will appreciate. Ibadat means it's the highest form of love and devotion for Hazrat Imam. And are you going to express that sleeping under your blanket, dreaming about the horror movie you just saw a few hours ago, or the love movie that you saw that made you so pleasurable to sleep? No. Those are all material things. That's why the Holy Imam said, set material things aside. Wake up. Don't miss it. And why shouldn't you miss it? For one thing, Mola Bapa is there. Secondly, let me share one treasure that Ibadat gives you. First of all, it floods you with Mola Bapa's nur when you wake up. It's an farman, okay? I'm not saying anything that is not there. Who am I to say this? I'm no one. I'm just an insignificant nothing, okay? But this is the guidance of Mola Bapa. That he says that I'm like Imam Hussein. There is a hadith of Pir HASSAM. He says, how fortunate are those who wake up at the time of light and they are flooded and surrounded by light. Imam Pir Hassan says that to us. But look, our Pir says in the Ginan, those who wake up in Waqt Nurani, those who make an effort, let me be very clear, those who make an effort and say to sleep, get out, I've had enough sleep, get out of my way, I can sleep later, but right now I don't need sleep, sleep, go away. And they wake up with that sincerity, honesty, enthusiasm. This is the time for my Imam. And you follow what Imam has told you. I don't have to go into that. What did the Pir says? You know, besides with the Imam, there are angels who come. Angels who come to wake you up. I want you to remember this. And they'll come once and say, get up, it's time for ibadah. And you may toss and turn and go to sleep. They come a second time. I will toss and turn again and go to sleep. They come for a third time. And then you toss and turn and you go to sleep. Now you might think, angels do really come? Yes, they do come. They do come. Open your eyes, open your senses. This is a reality from a spiritual perspective. They do come. After all, is it not a belief in our faith and even in Islam that you must believe in angels? Did you not hear the verse of the Quran that I read? That his angel comes, so they come. And you toss and turn and you refuse their call to get up. Then what happens? The Imam comes. Mullah Bapa himself is there. He said, I've sent people and my angels. You're not responding, so I will now come. So now I ask you from the perspective of our spiritual understanding, connection, and so on that we have, right? Will you actually dare keep Mullah Bapa waiting and not respond to him? You went to him to say, Mullah Bapa, guide me, show me the path, be with me. Will you stop? Will you dare not respond to him? I'll let you answer that question. You answer yourself. I say to you, be strong. Don't let your material engagement suddenly make you forget your spiritual engagement. Remember the notion of breath? Oh my God, this is the time you can gain the most, because all that you've done at that time will also help you in the physical world. Do you remember the format? Let me quote you the format. Other Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah says, if you wake up with my name, meaning, you know what that means. And you engage yourself in the name of the Imam into your practice. What did the Imam say? Your whole day will pass into enlightenment. Not only that, you want to be motivated? You remember how Imam Begum says that you are losing your 21,600 breaths every day? When you wake up to do your practice in the name of the Imam, in the way the Imam is asked you to do you know what happens? How gracious and generous Mullah Bapa is? You know what he's going to say? He's going to say, all right, I can see you've been honest, sincere, honest. You've been humble, and you recognize what Mullah Bapa has said about your soul. Okay, Mullah Bapa is going to say, every breath you take while you're awake for your material, for your dunya, I will give it to you as a profit for your ibadah. Please say salawat. Do you want the benefit? Do you want every breath to be counted profitably rather than wastefully? The time of Nur, Waqt Nurani, is the key to make sure those breaths are not wasted. I am delighted the question was asked because I had forgotten to bring this aspect forward. So this question has brought that forward. In addition, I was telling you what is one of the treasures that our Holy Peer told us. You know what he said, our Holy Peers? those who wake up during the time of Noor, Waqt Nurani, and those who wake up to do their ibadah, you know what happens? Mawla orders. Again, I'm telling you, this is in the Ginans. Mawla orders the angel to descend from the heavens gifts, spiritual gifts that comes in a golden platter to the person who wakes up for ibadah. You will never know what those gifts are until you wake up, and one day you will come to be told what they are. Besides that, during challenging times that we are living with, all your obstacles will melt. Will melt. You know what the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? Only if you knew what lies for you at the time of Noor, you would go to it, even if you had to crawl to go to it. Did Mola Bapa ask you to crawl? Like a little child who can't walk yet, you know, if they crawl towards what they want. Are you crawl? The Holy Prophet said, if you knew, only if you knew, even if you could not walk, you would crawl to it. So what's in there? Well, in the interest of time, if this was not enough for you for now, I'm sure you would ask for more understanding. But most of all, remember, Mola Bapa himself is there. Don't ignore him. Wake up. Do your best. Mola Bapa said be regular. But at times you won't be able to. And Mola Bapa knows. But be honest. Be sincere. Be legitimate. Be humble. And allow yourself to give yourself away to Mola Bapa himself. Give yourself in. Respect what you have committed for. Then, infinite blessing will come to you. Remove all obstacles. And you know what more? I'm so tempted to add this. When you do that, follow the farman of the Imam. In the context of your material and spiritual thing, you know what happens? Mola Bapa's own hand comes in the things that you do. And he will guide you into whatever you are seeking to do, whether it's material or spiritual. He takes away these calamities, problems. He said, no, go away. Not for this spiritual child. He loves me so much, I can bear the problem. Ibadat is love. Get up. Show your love to Mawla. Show your love to Mawla. Enlighten your soul. Show to Mola Bapa how valuable the soul is, because he has said so. Respect him for that. I have to stop because I think people may get annoyed if I just continue. But that was a very important question. So I wanted to. Are we okay, Gulshan?
No, that's good. Yeah.
So there are other things to be said, but I will say it into the near future. So I wanted to close by referring to this one part of the Holy Ginan, which is in Soloko motto. It is the Ginan of Pir Shams. And look what the Holy Pir says. Just 5 lines, okay? It says, the Holy Pir says, in the heart, worship the Lord. And the heart is the abode of the Lord. In the heart resides the Lord himself. And it is in the heart he, the Lord, gives didar. Dil mahe deval pujiye, ane dil mahe deve dua, dil mahe saiya aate vase, ane dil mahe aate didar. Meaning to say, do not leave your heart empty with anything except Mola Bapa himself. Keep Mola Bapa constantly in your heart because he lives there. Let him live there. Welcome him there. connect with him there. The heart is the point of connection. For the Mu'min, the heart is where Maulana Bapa lives. And all the miracles that you are seeking happens in the heart, spiritually and eventually projected materially. Maulana Bapa bless you. I offer humble prayer to Maulana Bapa. May Maula bless you with his nur. Nur in your ibadah. Nur in your prayers. Whatever your tasbihs are, whatever your du'as are, whatever your supplications are, for your material well-being and your spiritual well-being. May Maulana Bapa accept it all. May Maulana Bapa be with you every breath. Every step. May it become profitable for you. May your material life be made easy. May Maulana Bapa make it so easy for you that you can do your ibadah, you can remember it, and you can practice your faith with enlightenment. Maulana Bapa accept all your wishes. Barakat. More barakat. And like he said, and more barakat. May these barakat bring you happiness. And bring you freedom. More freedom. The freedom that Maulana Bapa wants to give us. May your heart be full of love. And full of humility. And may your akal, your intellect, your reason be enlightened. And Maulana Bapa guide you to the path of hakikat knowledge. Maulana Bapa bless you. Maulana Bapa gives you Zahiri, Nurani, Batini, Hidayah. Maulana Bapa bless you all. And have a very good night or a very good morning. Inshallah, if Maulana Bapa wills, I will try and we will talk some more in the very near future.
Thank you. Where is your next session, please?
For the moment, we are keeping this Tuesday session, at least until Imamat Day. And then I'm still receiving a lot of feedback about people wanting a different time because of the time differences. And the challenge we have, even if we have a different session, unfortunately I don't like to repeat my sessions. I could. It will never be the same because I don't have anything scripted except the references. So it may have a different angle. So I am investigating with the hosts and other people and basically welcoming your feedback. And one feedback was to have sessions on Thursdays, around 5:30, but that will be a third session in a week. And so I'm looking at the various angles and seeing how it turns out to be. For the moment, we have the sessions on Monday at noon, Pacific time, and Tuesday at 8 p.m. So watch out for the invite.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana Dr. Hassam. Mungu akubariki dini na dunia.
I would say habari mzuri. Thank you again.
What time, Dr. Hassan?
Yes.
On Thursdays at what time?
There's no Thursday right now. Only Monday noon and Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
If there is anything on Thursday, watch out for the invite that will come, and then if there is one. But for the moment, there isn't.
Dr. Hassan, can I request you to do Anatakado one time? The whole of Anatakado esoteric meaning?
Yes, it is very tempting to do it.
Yeah.
And inshallah, with Maula's blessing, we will one day take it on because, it's enormously large and lengthy.
Yes.
So we have to find a mechanism to make sure we are able to...
Maybe 10 parts or 15 parts at a time?
Could be.
Yeah.
I am looking into the whole... I mean, I have had literally dozens of requests
Because there is such a big confusion in this. There are some people who say Hassan Kabir soul was not a great soul and things like that. It's just such a big confusion out there, and my understanding is very different. And Hamida's sister, by the way, Dr. Hassan.
Yes.
So I always tell her, please request Dr. Hassan to do Anata Kado.
Well, today I did two.
Yes, I enjoyed thoroughly. And
inshallah there will be other parts.
I look forward to that.
They are so profound, and inshallah with Mawla's blessing, try to do our best to do.
Thank you. You are great. Thank you
again, Mawla. God bless you.
Thank you.
Don't hesitate to send your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sam.
Thank you again.
Yali, Dr. Hashim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yali, the session was so pleasant and enlightening. So my mom and my sister were all here, and we felt really fortunate to be part of this. I know I missed yesterday, and I saw the link, but I have been trying to find your first part of Dua Meaning. I have a CD, Dua Philosophy. Aman customally gave that to me in Seattle. And I've been trying to get the first part. I love the Dua Philosophy. Where do I retrieve that?
Unfortunately, what happened in that context, the first part, because I happened to be unfortunately absent when the series was on, and someone else did that first part, but it was never recorded.
Okay.
And subsequently, I did do an extended version of that first part rather than the summary, and I'll have to find it. So send your email and request in the chat, and then I'll ask the individual who is actually managing these to see if they can find it and send it to you. And I will repeat the philosophy of Dua, hopefully with new facets when I have the opportunity into these medias, if they continue.
We would be delighted to, and we look forward to.
Yes, Hanif.
Oh, again, may Mola bless you for your seva, and what a wonderful ayat. Last week you mentioned that Ginan, and I did some research online. It was the one you were talking about, the evolution, and there was the Ginan that you mentioned, Moment. Can you repeat the name again? Because I was confused. I can't find the meaning online.
Moment Chitverni. I'm sorry, the Ginan was Tomunivar Bhai Moti. It's also known as Moment Chitverni.
That's right. So I did research. I cannot find the full meaning online. It's a 630 verse Ginan, if I'm not
Yes. Yes. It's
do you know or do you have the meaning?
Yes.
The English meaning?
Yes. So, in one of those parts, I have to go back into my notes. But you are right, it's 635. And there are many parts, but that one was the one among others that basically summarized, because many of the parts give the details. And so what did you want me to do? Repeat that part of Ginan?
No, I'm wondering where I can find the full meaning of the Ginan in English.
I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, all the parts have been translated. Okay. I don't think. It may be, many people do amazing work here and there, but I don't think the parts have been translated. But that is one Ginan is so amazing. The word amazing doesn't even qualify. But I'm saying it's full of wonders, it is full of spiritual knowledge. It talks about the cosmological aspect of creation of the soul and the world and its interface, and so many beautiful things. But inshallah, if Mawla Bapa blesses us, we will have the opportunity to explore it.
Inshallah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
One more question for my children. They, the two angels. Can you tell me the names again, and which one is on the right shoulder, which one is on the left shoulder, or do you know? Just for the children, they can actually, reinforcement.
So it is Munkar and Nakir.
Okay.
Munkar is on the right, and Nakir on the left.
So the one on the right is recording the good things.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again, and may Mola accept and bless you for your seva.
Amin. Thank you.
Dr. Hassan.
Yes.
you have done a lot of this ALWAAZs, and obviously you've been recording quite a few of them, even prior to these sessions. Do you have a link to where all your previous ALWAAZs may have been recorded on, to a cloud or something like that, where you can get a link to it?
No, I don't have a link as such, but somehow people have gotten hold of them, because I can tell you I have not, in my own, made any such effort to gather them, but many people, in some way or shape, they got hold of them. I don't know if they're all of them, and they have made an internal thing to distribute amongst themselves. And if you send your request, some people have access to those or the extract of those, and hopefully you might be able to access them that way. But I don't have a link as such.
Okay, sure. I'll send my request, and hopefully somebody will pick it up and be able to direct me.
Dr.
ALWAAZ, hi.
Yes.
Anil Kanji. Can I ask you a question, ALWAAZ time? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I had asked in the chat, but maybe it never got to you. My Nana Baba in Zanzibar told me, now you must find out a Ginan where the peer tells you exactly how the soul comes out of the body. I really want to know if you know of such a Ginan.
I did not today go into that particular aspect.
Yes.
And I realized I said, this topic about the quest, the soul's quest for the light,
yes,
does not end here, is always, if you like, a work in progress.
Yes.
And when we will have an opportunity to actually do that, I will definitely mention that. And there are at least 4 or 5 Ginans that I can point out to, and where our holy peers have disclosed to us this mystery, if you like. And
we all would like to hear this. Please, we would all like. How fascinating!
It's absolutely fascinating, and
well, it's time to go now. I need to know.
Well, it's never too late. It's never too late to gain spiritual knowledge within time. That Mola Baba's blessing and Mola Baba's grace and mercy.
No, we didn't see her.
So I will do that now, and in locals I can always reach you.
Inshallah.
Locally too.
Yeah, local. Last thing, pray for everybody. Last thing I want to tell you, Mr. Sahab, I'm from Houston, Nasim Chunara.
Yes.
And now it's 12:30, but the way you told us about the Hazrimam standing next to us, my God, it just shook my whole, what to say, there is no words I can tell you about the angels and what you said. And I was just recollecting it, that we are so in the worldly, that we are getting up also, but we don't leave our bed. That we are talking it really very, very, very true. And from today onwards, I have made up my mind that before 3:45, I have to come out from the bed and I have to be with Maula Baba till 5:30 after his dua, and then he can sing us something else. And I hope you pray for us, because you are such a good Atma, such a blessed Atma, that I don't know, I have no words.
May Mawla make your wish come true. May Mawla hold your hand and take you out of this bed. And may Mawla bless you in your ibadat in such a way that you please Mawla, and may Mawla make achieve that goal that you are seeking for yourself. And to all of you who are seeking the same.
Thank you, so kind of you, Mawla. Always bless you and your family.
Amin for your loving prayers. Amin.
Dr. Hassan, I have a question.
It's Shams Panjwani from Toronto. In Ananda Karo, after the first verse, we have Ekane Mare Shah Ekane Tare. Is that something that can be repeated after every verse? It looks like it's a virani. Is that so?
Yes, yes. Now, in the past, they used to do that because they had the time. But it can be repeated if required. But we say it normally once when the Ananda Karo begins, and only the Hari as part of the request. But you see, this part of repetition is so fundamental, even the one you mentioned, because it is a powerful spiritual reminder who is the one who is holding our hand and taking us there.
Yes. Thank you very much. You're
welcome.
And Allah bless you for your seva.
Thank you.
Thank you, Missionary Sahib.
Thank you, Missionary Sahib.
Thank you for being there. Allah bless you.
All right, I think is it okay if I end the session now?
Yes, we can end it. Absolutely.
Can I send a message? Can I send a message before you end it? So we can get the message, please?
Well, what can you? Do you not have the email?
It's okay. I just wanted to. This is Nasrin, and I wanted to thank the missionary Sahib a lot about touching a few things in regards to ibadat, because he really touched that soul part in me. I'm very regular, but ever since COVID, I do not get up in time. And a bunch of stuff that he talked about really reminded of what my father had told me. And it was such a great reinforcement that I don't know what to say, but I just wanted to thank him for that.
Very much.
Yeah. Thank you for your feedback and comments. It means a lot. Thank you for saying so.
Thank you.
Bless you, Ibadat.
Amen. I need that strength. Thank you.